My name is Victor Zeiser, or known out there as Squeek, and I am the founder and one of the owners of Squeek Lights.
And my name is Ben Jarrett, and I'm a partner at Squeek Lights, and also Beartooth's lighting brand.
So I want to go for each of you. How did you get started with this industry?
A long time ago, I was bored and my parents were in a worship band in church, and I sat back at front of house till they put me at work mixing audio, and then eventually I found my way over to the light in our high school theater department, and from there I've never looked back.
But
Similar story. Victor and I actually met in high school at that at our school's theater, and I started off as audio, but he sort of suckered me into lighting, and then never looked back since.
awesome. So what were your opinions, if you had any, of lasers before you met X-Laser?
Before X-Laser, I thought lasers were stupid. Most of my experience with lasers were the laser guy who comes out and he shines the lasers and he's like, guys, look, I put dollar signs on the back of the venue. And it was just miserable because they always are on their own planet, not really creative, not in sync with the needs of the production. I'm sure there are great laser people, but what I was introduced to at my level was laser guys who just it wasn't cohesive with the rest of the show. It was just something on its own, and it didn't play nice with the creative jive. Like, I remember one time trying to just like, all right, this is the musical cue when you hit the lasers, and this is the color I want them to be to match everything else. And it was just like pulling teeth to make it happen.
Similar, different experience?
It's actually a very similar experience. My early touring was in sort of the EDM world, and so there would be times where I had the laser guy sidecar to me, and he's on his laptop with his big bulky connector. And yeah, if I got a conversation with him before the show, it's usually something like, hey, try to match mood and color with my lights, please. And he's like, yeah, no problem, you got it. I'm like, great, here we go. And then first cue, it's just, in all colors, and it's just like, all right, well, not quite what I was going for, but
You do you, bro.
yeah, that's been my experience.
So how did you meet X-Laser? If you remember.
Yeah, many years ago.
So we were introduced to X-Laser through the rep firm we use for one of the manufacturers of light we have, and they were kind of hype on, hey man, we've got lasers, like you should check it out. I think you guys would think it was really cool. I, of course, was very resistant because lasers are terrible. And eventually he coaxed us into having a demo, and we saw what the Mercury system could do. We saw how well X-Laser could handle the variances and keeping everybody safe and legal, and then we kind of like, oh, maybe this is something we want to consider. And then, one of our clients who had been asking for lasers for a million years, finally we're like, all right, we can do lasers for you.
Yeah, I mean, really, it was that. It was like we had, based on our previous, experience with lasers, had sort of built up in our minds that lasers were these big investment of time, knowledge, and safety and all that. But having been introduced with Adam and X-Laser, the company really helped us understand and take care of a lot of those concerns to make lasers something that's easy and can be integrated into lighting.
So how would you say that working with X-Laser has helped you as a company or as a programmer designer?
Yeah. So like I was just mentioning, just dealing with all the legal stuff, like the laser variances and all that jazz. They've also been really great with our customer support. Lasers are very sensitive, equipment. And touring's a very rough environment, and sometimes things go wrong on the road, but there's always somebody, phone call or email. Really good about getting RMAs back. In fact, I actually remember had a production manager there at the venue who was very due diligence about their job and required, they wanted to see a variance. I showed them our variance. It wasn't good enough for them because they were very, very due diligent. And, to make a long story short, I got Adam on the phone to talk to the venue for me and being able to, because I was in the middle of my load-in setting up a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah.
So be able to have him knowing that, like, okay, he's working with management on that end, I can focus on my other stuff as an LD, really came in, like, that came in huge help.
What makes lasers distinctive as lighting fixtures?
Just by the very nature of it being a laser, having that collimated beam of light, whereas a light is more dispersed, it allows it. As a programmer, it forced me to think about light in a kind of without limitations, I guess, because a lot of times when I'm programming my lights, I'm taking into account the time it takes for the light to physically move, the time it takes for a color wheel to slide into place. But with lasers, all that stuff is instant, which I had never really had to work with before, and it kind of opens up my mind to creating a lot of different. If I wanted to change the mood on a snap, all of a sudden that was now available to me through programming lasers.
Yeah.
One other thing, just to follow up with that, from not just the programming perspective, but when you're doing a show, can you, sense a reaction in the crowd from when the lasers fire versus typical lights, and what that like for you from as behind the desk? What's that like for you?
Oh, absolutely, and very intentionally for the Beartooth show, I was talking with the lead singer Caleb, and we wanted to wait, in a decent portion of the set to actually introduce the lasers and kind of save them as a little surprise. So we waited till halfway through the set, and then I believe it was the song, maybe it was The Better Me, I forget which song, but we introduced, and it's like a very laser dominated song. There's very minimal lighting.
Cool.
So when they do take that stage, it is a very impactful moment, and I'm very focused on the show, but you can kind of hear the whispers, the sort of wow, look, and all that jazz, which is really electric.
That's cool. What was the hardest or easiest thing to learn about lasers? Pick your favorite to talk about.
I think the most unique thing about programming lasers with the Mercury system is instead of with lasers used to traditionally relying on the lasers macros and the very stock things. And I think the thing a lot of LDs don't think about when they get into lasers, that the real power is taking the tricks of the Mercury engine, taking the tricks of the multiple builders, and then applying that to your console's effect engine. The way that just opens up so many possibilities for dynamic effects that are spread both across the beams of laser and the rest of your light rig as well, just opens up so many cool tips and tricks. Anytime we have an LD coming in and they're using lasers, they're using Mercury for the first time, I'm like, here's what you do. Take your 6 builders, zoom them down, grab the panel line, spread them out, and then put a tilt chase across that, or put a color chase across it. And then you do that across the 4 lasers, and then suddenly, that's 24 beams of light doing the effect. Now mirror that with your other lights in the rig, and this is something you could never even imagine doing with lasers in the past.
Yeah, and I owe some credit to our other business partner, Steve Kasiba. He gave me a little bit of advice when I started programming the lasers, and he told me to think of them as inside of each box you have 6 or 8 very fast scanners, and think of them as their own individual fixture. And so, sort of wrapping my head in that world, and then using MA's effect engine, really, that's what got me off to the races.
Is that like a light bulb moment for you?
Yes.
You figured out this is the true power of what this can do.
That was what made it all click for me.
Yeah. If you had any issues with getting started with lasers, how did you overcome them?
Kind of back to that last question. I was before I came to Steve for advice, I was thinking about the lasers and their builders as I would layers on Resolume or in video. And and I had some success thinking about it that way, but really what made it all click was no, it's not layers and videos, it's really fast scanners.
What kinds of events have you guys used lasers for?
I mean, primarily we've used them in metal shows. That's obviously our main client base, and we've done that. We've also used them some for EDM stuff, is always the obvious place to use them. And I'm trying to think, we've done some cool oddball stuff. We projected a logo onto a building a couple years ago, which was a fun special project. I'm trying to think any other like
Did you do corporate stuff at all, or not really?
I've done a little corporate with them.
I did a 4th of July event at a country club where like lasers were meant to be in a feature of the entertainment that night.
What kind of feedback have you received about the lasers? If it's from your clients, from the audience, like you said, other people in the crew, like band, like anything like that? What has the feedback been?
I mean, everyone's been super stoked on it. Like, you know, every time, especially during like load-ins or whatever, when it would come time to fire off the lasers for the first time, usually somebody somewhere would be like, "Oh, look at that!" Pew, pew, pew. You know,
it's always the go-to,
right? And myself included. I'd get, you know, if I was talking to the local hands, be like, "Yeah, we got lasers today," and you'd see their eyes light up, or you know. And I always. You know, if I ever needed help hanging something, I'd be like, somebody want to help me with lasers? And I'd be like, whoa, lasers? Yeah. But yeah, it was all really band, audience, crews, everyone was very excited.
Good. What are your thoughts on patching? Patching lasers.
Patching lasers?
Patching lasers.
It's pretty simple. So I had 8 lasers in total, and I just kept every laser on its own universe, ran over SACN, worked like any ordinary light.
Perfect. That's what we like to hear. I know some people like to do a little bit differently, but I find that like one per universe is because you have all that space.
Oh, yeah.
And then you just know that one is one. So good.
It's all network data, so it's really simple.
Yeah. What about zoning?
Zoning that was something, because this was my first ever tour running lasers. The first couple shows, it took me a minute to sort of get a workflow established for zoning out the lasers, but then once I did, it was a piece of cake. I would simply just shrink down to a smallish line, and then I'd leave the shields up, and then I would just manually focus the lasers to get them close to my termination point, walk back out to the console, use the console to make the zone exactly what I wanted, save it, and boom.
Great. How long does it take you, do you think, each day?
Depends on the day, right? Because some venues were different than others, but average about half hour.
Okay.
For 6.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Thoughts on color mixing and matching with your other lights?
It's great. You can make CTO with the lasers.
Yeah.
It's really cool, and it's unexpected, right?
Yeah.
And it's fun to make colors that you don't traditionally like. It's just, since it's on the console, it's all the same color palettes as the rest of your show.
Right.
So you can dial it in to fit the vibe of the show. You can get those album covers. You can get just everything, just part of it. And that's the great thing is, it's part of your show. It's integrated. It's cohesive with the look.
Yeah.
And it just makes it great. It makes it another light in your show. And not just yep, they're green, they're lasers.
Well, and especially, the CTO lasers, being able to make pastel colors out of lasers.
They're so pretty.
It's not something I'm used to seeing from lasers, because it's normally just full saturation, everything all the time.
What are your thoughts on the build quality of Skyriders?
So I really like the build quality of the lasers, especially the 5 watts. They're a compact form factor that's also really easy to service and take apart for simple cleaning and diagnostic things. And they're rugged enough that they hold up to life on the road, because loadouts and load-ins can be hairy sometimes, and sometimes the people handling the gear, they kick it around stage. So they hold up.
What are your thoughts on the Mercury back panel? The little display panel. Have you used that a lot, or do you use just console stuff?
I use the display for addressing and setting control, and I've had no problems navigating the menu.
Cool.
That's what you need right there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Good. What kind of limitations do you think lasers have? If any. Be limitless.
Well,
Laser without limits.
Laser without limits.
I'm trying to, right? It does, so the only time it really, I had a limitation is if we had an outdoor venue, occasionally, like, some spaces didn't offer ideal termination zones, and so I'd be shining out into the sky, which I'm not allowed to do. So, like, I guess the only real limitations I could think of is, like, when the venue or, like, when there's something physical that just simply can't be overcome.
Yeah, we had in the Beartooth design, we had 2 10 watts shining down onto the artist, and in my head it looked really fantastic. But the issue becomes, oh, well, you need X much space from the edge of the stage to keep it away from the audience.
Yeah.
And sometimes the physicality doesn't necessarily translate into the look you have in your mind.
Yeah. Thoughts on safety and legal requirements? We kind of touched on it already, but just about how easy it has been for you to handle it, or
X-Laser makes it really easy to be compliant. Like, I always felt like I had, confidence, like, talking to whoever I needed to convince venues that, hey, we know what we're doing, this is our stuff, we're going to have a great show.
So the big question, how has X-Laser given you an unfair advantage as either a business owner, as a lighting designer, as a programmer, etc.?
I'd say, as a programmer, the unfair advantage is being able to finally take lasers out of the hands of some random hippie guy and bringing them into my, like, design as, like, cohesive with the lighting and the video. Being able to program lasers, like, as if they were a regular light is something I never thought I'd have the chance to do. I kind of always assumed that lasers were in their own separate world, but now it is yet another toolkit that we bring into our lighting arsenal and have some fun with.
On the business side, I think X-Laser gives us the unfair advantage is that we have something we can offer that a lot of bigger shops don't. There's a large company who has to come to us for lasers because that's not something they do. And it's something we can offer that not everybody can. And until everybody else wises up and purchases their own X-Laser units, we'll keep taking care of that advantage.
Yeah.
What advice would you give a new lighting designer or a new person who's never used lasers for this first time? What would you tell them? I know you've kind of said a little bit, but
Yeah, and then I would also echo the advice Steve gave me was, like, think of your laser as 8 scanners that can move instantly, and then treat them like you would any other light.
Yeah, I think the move is treat laser, if you're getting started as a lighting designer, start simple. You don't need to do every single trick the laser has, but even just like make a little cone, make it change color with everything else, start very simple, and then just kind of build from there. Pick a couple gobos, make a couple positions, couple palettes, and then get used to it, get used to how it handles, and then start building more intricate things.
yeah. Where can people find you, and what do you guys do?
We're located right outside of New York in Sayreville, New Jersey, and Squeek Lights can help you with all your touring needs for lighting, video wall, X-Laser, of course. And we're also here to service shows in New York City. We're in a lot of great venues, and we'd love to help you on your next show.
Thank you so much, guys.